is a great talent and killing it at USC. Are they going to give up on Justin Fields that early, or are they just going to trade for more capital and for more potential very good players like they did with DJ Moore? And that question was finally answered when the Chicago Bears traded Justin Fields away to the Pittsburgh Steelers. So then it became very abundantly obvious that the Chicago Bears are going to take a quarterback with the first overall pick, and that quarterback is going to be none other than Caleb Williams. So that is what the Chicago Bears did. I'm going to give this a good, I'm going to have 2 rating scales on my picks. Good. I don't know. Bad. So, first overall pick, Chicago Bears. They needed a quarterback. They got their quarterback. I think he's the best quarterback in the draft. Seems good to me. Then, at number 2 overall in the 2024 NFL Draft, you have the Washington Commanders, also swinging for their next franchise quarterback. They select Jaden Daniels, quarterback out of LSU. Now, he is the 2023 Heisman Trophy winner. He had a very productive year with LSU, running the ball pretty well, throwing the ball also very well. I know that he was better than Joe Burrow in some random stat. I saw it like 8 months ago. I don't even know if I'm going to be able to find it, but it was something about like Joe Burrow was so good at LSU, but Jaden Daniels is actually doing this thing better. And I was like, oh, wow, that's kind of crazy. And then he won the Heisman. So it's a name that I remember. Washington taking a quarterback makes sense. Sam Howell wasn't really getting it done. And they traded him away to, I want to say it was Seattle in the offseason. So they very clearly needed a quarterback. And Jaden Daniels is a great talent. I do think that he is the second best quarterback on this board. So a good selection by them. Really, the only thing that was making this not a done deal was all those weird rumors about J.J. McCarthy being a top 3 overall pick for some reason. You had Jim Harbaugh talking about his pro day, J.J. McCarthy's, and he was like, yeah, that's the best pro day I've ever seen in my life. But, bro, you were his coach. You were his college coach. Jim Harbaugh is the Michigan coach that J.J. McCarthy played for. So, of course, he's going to hype up his quarterback, try and get some teams to sell on him, maybe trade up, and then he can just take whoever he wants in the draft with the Chargers pick. So, a nice facade that Jim Harbaugh tried to play, but it didn't quite pan out. Number 2 overall still went to Jaden Daniels. Then at number 3 overall, you have the New England Patriots, and they also opted to go for their franchise quarterback, selecting Drake May of North Carolina, UNC. And this is also a pretty good pick, I would say. Oh, Jaden Daniels, I give it a thumbs up. But yeah, Drake May. He, in this small blurb by Bucky Brooks, he does kind of compare him to Josh Allen, in terms of like, he's not the most refined or polished quarterback in this draft. He is on the younger side. He doesn't have as much experience as the other dudes, but he has the talent. He has the skill set for success. He just needs to be molded and get through his rough patches. Now, if you remember, Josh Allen's first couple years in the league, they were not pretty. Turnover machine, very athletic. He was hurdling over people. He was fun to watch, but he was also turning the ball over like anything. And until they really brought in Stephon Diggs, he was not that good of a passer, I want to say. Because I watched him, I was hating on him, and he just didn't look that great. So, Drake May, I think there are going to be rough patches. I don't think it's going to be immediate success, but the upside is there. And I definitely think it's a much better pick than J.J. McCarthy. So, for that reason alone, you had to work with who's left. I think if Jaden Daniels had fallen, I would have been very happy. But Washington made the right pick, and New England, working with what they had, makes most sense for them to go for a quarterback over something like a wide receiver. I'm glad they didn't trade down. And yeah, I'm also a fan of this pick, so I'll give it a thumbs up. Then, at number 4 overall, you have the Arizona Cardinals. They go out and they select Marvin Harrison Jr., wide receiver out of Ohio State. Daniels only in the last year. Caleb Williams, I've heard about for like a few years now. Marvin Harrison Jr., I've been hearing about. So the talent is obviously there. His dad, very, very successful wide receiver, went by the name of Marvin Harrison. So, he's got that legacy already. And he was killing it at Ohio State. And Ohio State has been pumping out these wide receivers that are pretty good in the NFL so far. Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave. JSN hasn't really popped off like that yet, but I think Terry McLaurin was also an Ohio State product. So they definitely find their success in the NFL. And the Cardinals are a wide receiver needy team. They lost DeAndre Hopkins last year, and didn't they just lose another dude? Rondale Moore signed with someone. So, yeah, I think that leaves them with like Greg Dortch, Michael Wilson. Yeah, so they definitely needed a wide receiver, and they got the best one in the draft, I would say. And yeah, that Kyler Murray to Marvin Harrison Jr. connection should be fun to watch. So I look forward to it. Giving this a thumbs up. Then we move into the 5th pick of the draft, the Los Angeles Chargers. Would have been very funny if they somehow took J.J. McCarthy here, and Jim Harbaugh was just telling them, let's run it back. But no, they did something much wiser. They took an offensive tackle, Joe Alt, out of Notre Dame. It's a solid move, Jim Harbaugh, I don't watch college football that much, but I have heard that his philosophy at Michigan and what ended up winning them the chip this year was his run-heavy offensive style. So J.J. McCarthy wasn't forced to throw it that much. Justin Herbert, very early into his career, has already thrown it so much. Obviously, he has great arm talent, but if they could reduce the burden on him to carry the franchise, I think that would be great. And this seems like a good move all around. You don't want Justin Herbert hitting the deck as much as he has, and if you can beef up the O-line, then maybe you can have a more successful rushing game. They used to have their backfield be led by Austin Eckler, who's not really known for his rushing abilities. He's kind of dynamic. He is a much better pass catcher than he is a rusher, I would say. But now they go get J.K. Dobbins, and they get Gus Edwards. Gus is a bus, he can bang through bus. But yeah, I think they'll be much more north and south running, and so it's a good pick. I don't see anything wrong with it. I'll give it a thumbs up. Then we go into pick number 6 by the New York Giants. With this pick, they selected Malik Neighbors, wide receiver out of LSU. I have to say I'm kind of jealous. Malik Neighbors, I saw his combine stats and his comparisons, and I was like, wow, that guy looks like a beast. I wish we could have him. Obviously, I didn't want to give up the 3, and I do think quarterback is much more important, but that is a juicy-looking wide receiver. So, good pickup by the Giants. They don't really have a standout wide receiver either. They're a very wide receiver needy team. They tried to pick up Kenny Golladay. That did not pan out at all. They tried to, I don't know, they have like Isaiah Hodgins, Darius Slayton. I think they still have Sterling Shepard, maybe. I don't even know. But no one is really that phenomenal in their wide receiver room. So I think this guy can come in and easily be that dominant alpha number 1 guy. And that should help out Daniel Jones because they've already invested all their money into Daniel Jones. So they need to do their best to help him out. And this is a great move in that field. So good job to the Giants. They did something right today. And yeah, I'll give it a thumbs up. Then moving into number 7, you have the Tennessee Titans selecting J.C. Latham, offensive tackle out of Alabama. Tennessee is kind of, I want to say they're in the trenches right now, just because they used to be pretty solid, but then you lose Mike Vrabel, who I feel like was a good coach, and you lose Derrick Henry, which, as of late, was the face of your franchise. his second-year quarterback. He looked good in that very first game, and then he looked okay afterwards. They're going to try and build on him. He's not horrible by any means. He's definitely a lot better than Malik Willis. And you did just go out and get Calvin Ridley, so you're helping out your second-year QB in that sense. Losing Derrick Henry hurts a lot. You replace him with Tony Pollard, who is a very different kind of running back, but offensive tackle never hurts. I feel like if you're going to beef up your O-line, it's almost always a good idea. The only time I've seen anyone get backlash for selecting like a offensive line type of dude was when the Patriots took Cole Strange because it was a huge reach. I feel like he's been pretty solid though, and yeah, I haven't heard anything about this being a bad pick, and you know, maybe he'll help with the run game. It's fine. I don't feel anything about it, but it's probably good. I'll give it a eh, because I don't know what they're really going to do this year. I'm sure it's a productive pick, but I don't know what to think of it. I don't know anything about J.C. Latham. I don't know what the Titans are looking to accomplish. And yeah, if they had Derrick Henry, I feel like I would give this a higher score because I know that they are going to run the offense through Derrick Henry more so than Will Levis. But yeah, I don't know. Then moving into pick number 8. This was a pick held by the Atlanta Falcons, and I have to say, funniest pick of the draft. I have not seen any draft pick ever get this much backlash. It's like everyone unanimously has agreed that this was the worst pick possible for the Falcons. So with the 8th overall pick in this year's draft, the Falcons selected Michael Penix Jr., quarterback out of Washington. Now, let me set the scene for you. You are the Atlanta Falcons in the 2023 NFL season. Horrible QB play. You're swapping between, what is it, Taylor Heineke and Desmond Ridder. It's not very pretty. Not very pretty at all. Did they also have Mariota? No, Mariota was on the Eagles. Yeah. The quarterback scene is kind of abysmal. You keep going back and forth saying which one is the starter. And the season ends. You barely miss the playoffs somehow because your division is so weak. And you fire your head coach. Then you go out and get, I believe his name is Raheem Morris, out of Los Angeles. He's your new head coach. He comes in, he talks about how you have special offensive weapons like Drake London and Bijan Robinson and Kyle Pitts. This is all true. And he did say that quarterback was a big flopping point on the Falcons last year. So all signs point to them getting a new quarterback. Then on the first day of free agency, you make a big splash and you sign Kirk Cousins to a 4-year, $180 million deal, which is great. You know, you solved your quarterback problem. You get a veteran quarterback who's very good. He seems very happy to be there. Obviously, he's coming off an Achilles injury, but he's a good dude, and so yeah, everyone's happy. Then news breaks out. There are some reports of tampering. Maybe you talked to Kirk Cousins a little bit before you were actually supposed to, and that's a big no-no. So the league is going to investigate it, and just based on the way the league operates, you might be losing your first-round draft pick in 2025, maybe even 2026. So now you're the Falcons. You're panicking. What do? You crumble. The Falcons are not good in high stress situations. I hate to say it. I've seen it live. They are not. When the lights are too bright, they're really too bright. So the Atlanta Falcons, they whip up the most baffling pick you would ever think of, signing their new franchise. Well, not franchise, but their new quarterback for the next 4 years. They're gonna give him like almost $200 million. They decide, with our only first-round draft pick in possibly the next 3 years, let's go get someone who cannot contribute at all. We're going to get a backup quarterback, selecting Michael Penix Jr. And the reason why this is so crazy is like, you know that his career is going to come dwindling down at some point. So you take a QB. But they were still successful. Like, the team was still good. They needed help in other aspects of the team, and they chose to take a quarterback. And not only that, they moved up in the draft. They moved from like 29th-ish to 23rd, and they took Jordan Love, and that was shocking. And it did motivate Aaron Rodgers. Like, he won back-to-back MVPs after the year that they did that. But that was your franchise dude, and you were kind of ready to phase him out. The Falcons just picked up Kirk Cousins. Like, he has not played a single snap for them yet. And this is the 8th overall pick, and you use it on a position that, like, there's absolutely no way that he's starting. Like, you don't even want him starting. You want Kirk playing all 4 years, every single snap. You're hoping that Kirk is ready. And if Kirk is not ready, are you really going to throw this rookie quarterback out there to start the season? Like, it doesn't make any sense. And that dude, Michael Penix Jr., has a very bad injury history. He's already 24. So by the time Kirk is done in Atlanta, this guy's going to be 28. I don't know. I really don't know. Like, Jordan Love, that situation was different, but it was also at the end of the first round, which makes it a bit better. A top 8 pick, like, they really had no suitors. I don't understand it. Like, I don't even know if Penix was going to go top 15, and you took him at 8. Like, J.J. McCarthy was being talked up so much, I was certain that McCarthy was going to be the 4th quarterback off the board. But now you leapfrog McCarthy. You take Penix when you don't need a quarterback, and this guy doesn't suit your needs in any way, shape, or form. Masterclass by the Falcons. I have really enjoyed reading how upset and distraught Atlanta Falcons fans are over this pick. Most of them are outraged. There's some people who are kind of coping. They're like, yeah, it's okay. He can study behind Kirk and be okay. But it's like, this was the best draft capital you're going to have in the next 3 years. I just don't know. They must not have been able to trade it. But even if you couldn't trade back in the draft or trade for future capital, why didn't you take someone who was more useful to you? I don't know. Crazy. But props to the Falcons for keeping the draft interesting, you know. There's always that one unpredictable pick. Then, at number 9, you have the Chicago Bears selecting once again. This is the actual draft pick that they held this year. And they went out and got Rome Odunze, the wide receiver out of Washington. So you got 2 Washington guys getting picked back-to-back, Michael Penix Jr. and Rome Odunze. Chicago is really going all in on their offense this year. You know, they already acquired Keenan Allen in the offseason, making a very cushy job for Caleb Williams. They also got DeAndre Swift. They're really catering. And now they also pick up Rome Odunze, so a top 3 wide receiver prospect who looked very good, I will say. And yeah, now you have 3 absolute playmakers that Caleb Williams can throw the ball to. And yeah, very excited. You know, last year I thought that the Bears also did a great job in their offseason. It didn't translate as much as I thought it would, but this is great. I still think like Caleb Williams will need 1 year. Maybe. I wouldn't be surprised if he was able to have an amazing year because the surrounding talent is just so high. But obviously this is the NFL. Like CJ Stroud, if you can have a CJ Stroud type of year, that would be probably what all Bears fans are hoping for. But CJ Stroud is like a dog, and he did really good with limited assets. So it was. Oh yeah, so Atlanta Falcons, big thumbs down, and Chicago Bears, number 9, thumbs up. Then at number 10 overall, you have the Minnesota Vikings selecting J.J. McCarthy, quarterback out of Michigan. They traded up 1 spot with New York to get into the 10. They were originally going to select from the 11. On paper, this looks weird. Very weird. Why would you move up 1 spot when you know for sure that New York is not taking a quarterback? simple answer is other people were calling about it, and New York was fielding those calls. So Minnesota, they were feeling the pressure of maybe the Broncos or the Raiders, one of these other quarterback needy teams, that they might creep up and steal their guy JJ. And so they didn't want New York to be too persuaded by anyone else. They made them an offer, and they move up just one spot to make sure that they get their guy. So a necessary move by the Vikings. And yeah, I think at 10, this is a good spot for J.J. McArthur to be. He's one of those guys who, he didn't throw it a ton. They were a very run-heavy college team, and he's talented, but it's just like, there's less to know about him. So if you were to go top 4, it would be very risky. 10 is a solid spot. And yeah, the Vikings, they're not in the most dire of places. They have signed Sam Darnold, so they have someone who can take the helm for a little bit, and then maybe they can phase in J.J. McCarthy. We'll see. But overall, they needed a quarterback, and they got one. And they got it at a fair spot, too. Not too much of a reach, I don't think. So, good job. Then at number 11, you have the New York Jets selecting Olumuyiwa Fashanu, offensive tackle out of Penn State. First off, great job with trading down one pick and getting extra capital. You knew you weren't going to take JJ, but you knew that other teams wanted him, so very smart and wise by the Jets. And then taking an OT, yeah, you can't fault them. Aaron Rodgers went down on the first drive of the season last year, and you can't risk that. This could be Rodgers' only shot with your team, so you have to do everything in your power to protect him. You're not going to want to take any risks, so even though there was a lot of speculation that they might take Brock Bowers, I think this is a smart pick. So, good job. Then you have at number 12. Hold on. I just realized I need to check my phone. Okay. I'm good. At number 12, you have the Denver Broncos. They also opt to try and get their quarterback of the future, selecting Bo Nix, quarterback out of Oregon. Bo Nix, I feel like has been in college forever. He's had a lot of success on Oregon, and he also played at Auburn. But a guy who has more experience, and I guess that's what Sean Payton was looking for. Yeah, I don't know. I didn't know he was going to go this early, to be honest. I didn't know he was going to be a round 1 pick. I figured most of these other guys, probably so, but I guess the Broncos really liked him. Now the Broncos have a very white quarterback room between Zach Wilson, who they picked up from the Jets, and Bo Nix. It'll be interesting to see that quarterback competition. I think they've already said that Bo Nix is going to be their guy, and yeah, that makes sense because Zach Wilson has done nothing. But yeah, I'm gonna give it an okay. I don't know if he is franchise quarterback material. Would have liked to see him in more of a backup role. Well, I guess he is on the older side. I don't know. I guess maybe it's ideal. I can't presume to know, so that's why I give it a maybe. Then at number 13, you have the Las Vegas Raiders. They opt to take the best talent off the board at this point, and they go with Brock Bowers, tight end out of Georgia. You do have to kind of feel for the Raiders. At 13, they were definitely quarterback needy, but they just couldn't get anyone, and there's literally no one left at all on the board at this point. So they opted to just go for the best guy left, Brock Bowers, and it's a good pick, phenomenal talent. All signs point to him being an absolute beast in this next level. Very productive at Georgia, and many people had him going at number 10 to the Jets, so decent value grabbing him at 13 as well. And Gardner Minshew's not the worst. I think he wins that starting position, and he can nail the ball. He almost took the Colts to the playoffs this year, and I think that's the kind of year that you have. You probably are by far, I would say. Um, Jameson Williams, no, not Jameson, Jamal Williams, horrible first year tenure with the Saints, wasn't used very much at all, and they had some rookie guy whose name I can't remember, but all in all, their backfield was not impressive, so getting this online fixed up, I think is a good way to help improve your offense, and yeah, it's a good move. Then at number 15, you have the Indianapolis Colts selecting Latu, edge out of UCLA. A bit of a risky move. Obviously, talent is there, undeniable. He's an edge rusher. Revived his career. I think he had to retire medically because he had a very severe neck injury, but then he made a comeback and he was great after it. So he got a lot of praise. Very inspirational story, but health is a big question mark, a big concern. So if he can stay healthy, I think you're getting a great player. But if you have another tweak in your neck, his career could be very short-lived. So hopefully the Colts and Latu are able to maximize his longevity and he is able to play for a very long time, and in which case I would say it's pretty good. But yeah, it's kind of like a Michael Porter Jr. situation, I would say. I don't know anything about his injury, to be honest. I'm just saying that it's like a good prospect that has some health concern, so you have to wait and see if they're going to fully heal and be okay, or if they're going to have lingering pains and never really pan out. That's kind of the situation that the Colts are in. But yeah, after that you have the Seattle Seahawks. They select Byron Murphy II, DT out of Texas. I don't know anything about this. The Seahawks, I don't remember at what rate they were pressuring people last year. I know that they lost Bobby Wagner. He's a linebacker. And I don't know anything about Byron Murphy. So I'm gonna cut this one short. I'm just gonna say I don't know what I don't know. I don't know anything. I can't say if it's good, can't say if it's bad. I haven't seen anyone be upset about it, so I'm inclined to believe that it's good. We'll see. So moving on into number 17, we have the Minnesota Vikings selecting Dallas Turner, edge rusher out of Alabama. They moved up to go get this guy. They traded with Jacksonville, and they wanted to get Dallas Turner. They liked where he was at, and they paid a price for it. I think that this is a good move, once again, on Minnesota's end. They're trading up twice. They're being aggressive, getting the guys that they want, and I'm all for it. The reason why I believe that this is a good pick is because everyone that I've seen in the Atlanta Falcons comment section talking about how bad of a pick Penix Jr. was is also talking about how Dallas Turner is going to be a generational talent, and they really wanted him. I don't know if they're expecting to pick him up at 8 or trade back and go get him, but either way, Minnesota getting him at 17 seems like a good value, and I'm hearing good things, so I'm inclined to believe this is a good pick. Then at number 18, you have the Cincinnati Bengals selecting Amarius Mims, offensive tackle out of Georgia. Good move, you know. A few years ago, you had Joe Burrow going down with a ACL injury, I think. So, he lost that season. Then Joe Burrow comes back. He got to the Super Bowl. He is very productive. He is very good. But he is getting sacked a lot in that Super Bowl game. So, what do? You try and get that offensive line up. You go get Orlando Brown. A good move. But once again, Joe Burrow goes down. Season's kind of a dump. So, protecting Joe Burrow is imperative. That is number one objective. You also signed Trent Brown in this offseason, but as a Patriots fan, Trent Brown's okay. If his mind is in it, he can be good. His mind was not in it for us last year. He was sitting out some games. Can't really tell if he's unhealthy or what's going on, but a backup option is a good idea. And Amarius Mims, he is freaking massive. I don't know if I'll be able to, 6'8", Angeles Rams selecting Jared Verse, edge rusher out of Florida State. I've heard good things about him. Bucky Brooks, in his post-draft analysis, was talking about how he kind of rushes like Khalil Mack, which is a great comparison. The Rams just lost Aaron Donald to retirement, so they don't have as much of a pressure. Yeah, they need someone who can pressure. And Jared Verse, I saw some of his scores and things like that. He looks very talented, so I think this is a good pick for the Rams. Then we have the Pittsburgh Steelers at number 20, selecting Troy Fautanu, offensive tackle out of Washington. Yeah, solid pick, you know. You just went out and got your two new quarterbacks this year with Russell Wilson and with Justin Fields. And you want an offensive line that's going to protect these mobile quarterbacks. May as well get a dude that, according to Bucky Brooks, can play anywhere on the line. I think that'll be very helpful for motions and things like that, and just like a mobile pocket. So, yeah, good pick. Then at number 21, you have the Miami Dolphins selecting Chop Robinson, edge rusher out of Penn State. The Dolphins, I think they just lost Christian Wilkins. I don't know where exactly Christian Wilkins used to play, but he was a guy that was helping them get pressure. So losing him, you add another dude who is going to help in that regard. Solid move, you know, good backup. I'd say it's good. Then we move into pick number 22, which was the Philadelphia Eagles, and they select Quinyon Mitchell, cornerback out of Toledo. I haven't heard of Toledo since Kareem Hunt, so it's cool to see them up in the first round once again. And yeah, I think this is a good pick. Eagles last year, definitely a lot of commentary about their secondary, between what's his name, James Bradbury, and the other guy, Darius. Yeah, Darius Slay is on the Eagles, right? I want to say no one's talking smack about Darius Slay. It's just about James Bradbury, but you know, they did not do nearly as well as the year before, so it makes sense that they are trying to resolve their issues in the secondary, and they go out and they get the first cornerback off the board. Surprising that it fell all the way to 22, no cornerbacks, but it has been a very offensive and edge-oriented draft thus far. So yeah, good job by the Eagles. And then at number 23, you have the Jacksonville Jaguars, who acquired this pick via trade with Minnesota. They traded back, and they go get their wide receiver replacement for Calvin Ridley in Brian Thomas Jr., wide receiver out of LSU. Brian Thomas Jr. also heard very good things about him. Played alongside Malik Neighbors. This guy found the end zone 17 times last year, which is phenomenal. And I know that Jacksonville is looking for a new red zone target. Trevor Lawrence would often look for Calvin Ridley in the red zone, even though they didn't always connect. I want to say I saw like at least 5 different touchdowns wiped because Calvin Ridley could not get his second foot in the end zone. I just couldn't get his feet down, which is crazy. But yeah, they lose a big wide receiver, and they pick up a good one. The top 3, I want to say, were like a different tier. I had heard such good things about the top 3, but Brian Thomas Jr. I've also been hearing very nice things. I don't think he is going to necessarily come in and be the clear-cut wide receiver 1, but it's a good compliment to a room with Zay Jones, Christian Kirk, and Gabe Davis that they just added. Yeah, like a bunch of guys that are like solid wide receiver 2 material. So, law of averages, you know, be well-rounded. Then, at pick number 24, you have the Detroit Lions trading up with the Dallas Cowboys to select their guy in Terrion Arnold, cornerback out of Alabama. Last year, they took Brian Branch from Alabama, and he panned out very well. So I think they're just scooping up the last of the Nick Saban Alabama alumni. And yeah, they didn't have a great secondary last year. Like, they as a team as a whole, but I think everyone knew that they could be shredded in the passing game. Their defense in the running game was superb, top notch, but you could kind of have their way, and that's what happened to them more or less in the Rams game and in the 49ers game. So good pick by them to try and mediate their hole in the secondary. So good job. Then at number 25 we have the Green Bay Packers selecting Jordan Morgan, offensive lineman out of Arizona. I don't remember if this is true, but I think the Packers released David Bakhtiari. I don't even know how to say his name. It must be because of the money he was owed. Maybe he was injured. I really don't remember. The last thing I remember about the dude was Aaron Rodgers really wanted him on the Jets, and he couldn't go. And then I feel like I haven't heard about him in 9 months. So it's possible I saw somewhere that he's no longer on the Packers, and if that's the case, then you do want your offensive line to be a little bit stronger. And yeah, how about Jordan Love? I feel like their wide receiver pretty set. They just got a new running back on the offensive side. Like, their tight ends are solid, so yeah, why not get a lineman? Good idea. Good. Then Tampa Bay Buccaneers at number 26 overall in this year's draft, they select Graham Barton, center out of Duke. I don't know anything personally about Graham Barton, but I do know that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers were not very good at running the ball. Rashad White is not very efficient, and Chase Edmonds was not very good. So, yeah, difficulties in running the ball can be helped by getting a better offensive line. So getting a new center, that's going to help everyone on the offense. Baker Mayfield maybe gets more time to pass to his premier wide receivers, and you got this running game that needs a little bit of help. So overall, good pick. Then at number 7, you have the Arizona Cardinals selecting Darius Robinson, defensive end out of Missouri. This pick was acquired via trade with Houston. Houston traded out of the first round, which I think is fine. They won last year's draft, so big and bad that they're being modest this year. I understand. I don't know anything about Arizona's need for defensive ends, and I don't know anything about Darius Robinson. So what I don't know, I'm not going to pretend to know. I'll just give it this, and we'll move on. After that, at number 28, you have the Kansas City Chiefs selecting Xavier Worthy, wide receiver out of Texas, in a pick that they acquired from Buffalo. The rich get richer. Kansas City winning back-to-back Super Bowls on really questionable wide receiver groups. I feel like 2 years ago it was kind of fine. Juju wasn't horrible yet, and they had some other dudes. Last year they picked up Rashee Rice, but the rest of the wide receiver room was really awful. Now Rashee Rice is like going to jail because he's a weirdo. Bro, it's racing. He won the Super Bowl and he's racing. Like, I don't know what is up with guys doing stuff like that. But yeah, he's probably going to be suspended for a few games there, and the Chiefs are looking for a wide receiver that can take the top off of the field. That's what they used to have with Tyreek Hill 2 years ago before he was traded. I think they're hoping that McCole Hardman could mold into that kind of guy, and then they got rid of him, and then they got him back. But McCole Hardman is not Tyreek Hill. So Xavier Worthy set the record for fastest speed ever recorded at the combine, 4.20 or something like that, in his 40-yard dash. That definitely amped up his draft stock. He was pretty productive at Texas. Yeah, it does help the Chiefs in what they need. My only concern is the fastest wide receiver in the draft. Like, I don't know if it's ever been out. Like, I remember looking at the list of the 10 fastest wide receiver times in the draft, or in the combine. Not a single one of them was, like, very good. John Ross, we all know how that panned out. So, maybe this will be a different case. Obviously, the Chiefs don't need it. They're very good, regardless of what you throw at them. So, it's only beneficial for them to take a guy like this. got so many contracts to figure out, between like tax extension and CeeDee Lamb's payment. So I can see why they had to let him walk. They claim that they're all in this postseason, offseason free agency. I don't believe that, but I will say that this was a good move. Yeah, no harm, no foul. You fill a hole that you needed to fill, and you get some extra draft capital. So, good move by the Cowboys. Then we move into pick number 30 by the Baltimore Ravens. This is a selection of Nate Wiggins, cornerback out of Clemson. Another one of those situations. I know that the Ravens lost Geno Stone and they lost Patrick Queen, but as far as I'm concerned, neither of those guys are cornerbacks. So I don't know if this was a hole that they needed to fill, and I don't know anything about Nate Wiggins, so I'm gonna give it this. I just don't know anything. And we'll move forward. Second to last, we have at pick number 31, the San Francisco 49ers selecting Ricky Pearsall, wide receiver out of Florida. This is a very telling pick. San Francisco has been trying to get things done, get a contract banged out with Brandon Ayuk. Lots of signs pointing to Brandon Ayuk being out of there. Not a lot of traction in these talks. The GMs keep saying that they want Brandon Ayuk there forever, but he keeps posting on his Instagram story about like, nah, don't talk all this nonsense and not back it up. Where's my money? I think his brother's saying like, yeah, we're up out of there. Things do not look positive or optimistic in that signing. So I think Brandon Ayuk is going to get traded either today or the next day, probably during the draft. I've seen potential landing spots be the Steelers because they're clearing up cap space and they just lost Deontay Johnson, so they're trying to get a replacement. I've seen that the Patriots, they could maybe do it. They definitely need a wide receiver, and they've been in the market for one in trade, supposedly. So, maybe. But either way, 49ers taking a first-round wide receiver doesn't look good for Brandon Ayuk's tenure as a Niner. So, I think we're going to have to say goodbye to him. And, yeah. The Niners, they're thinking ahead. They pick up a guy that I don't know if he's all that good. I haven't heard anything about Ricky Pearsall, but I'll give it a good, because they know they're going to lose this guy. So they're getting a backup, or they're getting a replacement. So smart thinking. Then you have the Carolina Panthers, who traded into the first round. They had pick number 33. They moved forward one pick, I guess, to just solidify their pick in wide receiver talent choice. Traded with Buffalo after Buffalo traded with Kansas City. With the 32nd overall pick in the 2024 NFL Draft, the Carolina Panthers select Xavier Leggett, wide receiver of South Carolina. Carolina to Carolina, it's going to be an easy move for him. Xavier Leggett, physically and in photos, he looks kind of like a DK Metcalf kind of dude. So I, as a fan, would be kind of hyped for him. I don't know what his analysis or tangibles are like. He looks like a dude. He looks like a beast. I wouldn't look at him and be disappointed by this pick. I am kind of surprised that Adonai Mitchell has not come off the board. I guess he's more of an upside type of dude. He didn't have a ton of production, but yeah, crazy draft. You had a record 23 offensive players taken in the first round out of 32. No running backs taken this year in the first round because it was kind of lackluster in the talent of the